Um, one of my favorite myths, I just want to debunk is people are like, "Oh, I don't like taking creatine because it makes me look fluffy." That is inherently not how it works. Because look at when you look fluffy from bloating, it's because of subcutaneous water retention, right? Welcome to Iron Summit, where we cover topics about health, fitness, and general performance through the eyes of former elite Division One wrestlers. Today on the Iron Summit podcast, we are going to discuss supplementation in general, including our overall thoughts on supplements, what supplements we are currently taking, some things you should consider before taking supplements and while taking supplements, as well as a little bit more of an in-depth review on creatine. All right, Ryan, what's up?
What's up? Hey, I got a question for you before we start. What's the craziest supplement you took when you were younger, when you just started started to be a gym bro and you're like, hey, let me try something that you like look back, you're like, it did absolutely nothing.
Oh, it did absolutely. I can tell you the craziest one I took that definitely did something, which was like the original Jacked pre-workout
Okay. Yeah.
that basically had meth in it. That
It's just
was like one molecule off meth. It's
dude, so I was reading that white paper that we'll talk about a little bit later, and they kept referencing Jacked. So that's so funny that you actually took that because that
well
was
that
like their like baseline of like, don't do this.
yeah. Well, that no one knew it was bad, so everyone was like, "This pre-workout's awesome." This was like probably early high school, and yeah, no wonder it made you feel some kind of way. Um, Stupidest. I mean, I've tried deer antler. That's pretty stupid in
Okay.
hindsight. Um, doesn't do much in reality. I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like when I was younger, I was like afraid to take creatine, which was kind of funny just because wrestling, I'm like, I'm not going to make weight or something. I took like, I remember when Muscle Farm was big, like taking like amino acids or something because I saw some posts that they posted
Yeah,
about it. I don't know if it really helped at all. I'm like, if I'm getting enough protein, I don't know if I need like BCAAs or whatnot, but I don't know. It just seemed like a waste of money for a high school kid with like zero discretionary income. But I didn't do too many crazy things, I don't think.
yeah, yeah. We can talk. We could get into amino acids. Honestly, we could do many podcasts on supplementation, and we will. But one analogy I like for amino acids I've heard is if you're eating enough protein, taking amino acids is like being in a swimming pool and pouring water on your head.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's you're wet. You're already wet. You're not getting any wetter. Just so I mean,
That's
maybe if you
awesome.
have a bunch of discretionary income and you want to try anything, sure, why not? But high school kid looking to maximize and supplement intake, probably not
Yeah,
the
I
best.
it could have been optimizing for a little bit better supplements, I think, than BCAAs. But yeah, I don't know. That's funny. Um, and then I guess before we really get started with this, just a quick disclaimer for the audience, like talk to your doctors first, be smart about trying stuff. I think there's a lot of rabbit holes you can go into with supplementation, and we are by no means doctors or medical professionals. So you want to make sure you're doing the right things first and yeah, not just blindly taking advice from somebody on the internet before doing your own research.
100%. Second thing, and I know we've already talked about this in our first episode, but before you're worrying about supplementation, you need to be doing everything else right first. You know, nutrition, you're going to get way more out of that. Your sleep, you get way more out of that. Alcohol consumption and in moderation there, you're going to get way more out of that. If you're doing those things right and you're still looking for a little extra edge, then let's get into supplements.
Yeah, absolutely. I think supplements too, it's such a fun topic because I don't know, it's interesting to see how different stuff and I think different people react to different stuff too. But I think like half the reason supplements are fun to play with is like the placebo effect of like you thinking it does something. Like and then feeling like you're like going above and beyond. Not that stuff doesn't actually work. There's stuff that I think but like that does work. But like you said, might be 1% difference where if you sleep 8 hours and you eat whole foods, it's probably going to make a lot bigger difference. So yeah,
But yeah, we can get into it. And yeah, I think that kind of covers like our overall thoughts on supplementation is if you are looking for an edge and you're doing everything right, you can probably get something out of supplements. But if you're not doing those things right, kind of our hierarchy of fitness we talk about in episode one, focus, put your energy and focus and money and time into kind of nailing, the more important things, and then you can worry about supplements.
Yeah, 100%. Um, and then Max, do you want to start by just talking a little bit about what supplements you're currently taking? And yeah, we'll go from there.
Yeah. Um, and we'll get into this a little bit later in the episode as well. But the supplements I'm currently taking are based on trial and error, working with an awesome coach, working with my doctor. I do regular and consistent blood work. So this is kind of dialed in over time. And it's also a function of like, you can go so far down a hole of supplements. You can end up taking like 30, 40 pills a day. And it's just a pain in the butt. And it's not, it's not worth your time. At least I don't like doing that. I try to take like a handful in the morning and a handful at night. And even that's annoying. Like when my little box runs out and I got to refill each little thing for the week, it's a pain in the butt. But right now, I take a batch of supplements in the morning, and a batch of supplements at night. What I take in the morning is really focused on two things like hormonal health and immune health. In the hormonal health section, you got KSM 66, which is just ashwagandha, like kind of refined ashwagandha. It's one of the only randomized control trial herbs or supplements that actually is proven to boost testosterone.
Quick question for you there,
Yep.
quick. Like, so ashwagandha, I feel like is all the hype last, I don't know, 6 months, year.
Yep.
Do you like cycle on and off that? 'Cause I've heard a lot about like, I don't know, every couple weeks you're supposed to stop taking it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I do notice is, well, a couple things. When you first start taking it, you can feel a little weird, like little like I felt like almost on edge, like I was kind of pissed off. Um, and here's also a disclaimer about ashwagandha: it's not for everyone because and this is probably how it affects your testosterone. It modulates your cortisol levels
Mm.
effectively, so it makes you it brings down your cortisol, which is your stress hormone, which in turn is really good for testosterone production. That being said, some people have a hard time producing enough cortisol, especially people who are a little more anxious, maybe struggle with depression, anxiety. Um, so if you're one of those people, like it can make people really feel shitty, like anxious and nervous. So make sure it's for you first. And then, yeah, I think that's probably a good point in general. I think it's good, especially when it's a hormone modulating supplement, to cycle on and off, period. You're just going to stay more sensitive. You shouldn't be taking anything for like any supplement for consistently for like 2 years. I
Yep.
mean, cycle on and off. I think with ashwagandha though, yeah, I do like usually like a month, and then I just won't take it for a month or two, and then I'll do like a month. Um, but I take that KSM 66, and then for immune system health, I take quercetin every day, which is just really good for your immune system. It also helps kill the replication of viruses, so it's just a good thing to take regularly. I take NAC, which is N-acetylcysteine, probably best the pronunciation of that up, but that's also just really good for immune function. And then I also take N-acetylcarnitine, which is good for kind of overall energy levels. So that's my morning stack. What about you? You take anything in the morning?
Yeah. Usually in the morning, I'm just taking like scoop of creatine. Not that morning matters, but it's just like it was easy to do it. I usually take like a multivitamin and then a fish oil. And that's about it usually for the mornings. If I'm really sick, maybe I'll throw like some zinc or something. But yeah, usually just fish oil, multi, creatine.
I do take fish oil in the morning too, by the way.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, it's a good one. What about at night? Do you take anything at night or?
Yeah, I think at night, magnesium, I think it helps with sleep, muscle relaxation, stuff like that. I think especially when you're sweating, a lot too. So magnesium and then vitamin D pairs well with that. So I'll usually take vitamin D. Probably less important now that I live in California. When I was living in Chicago and you don't see the sun a lot.
Yeah.
I think vitamin D levels were probably pretty low. Pretty cool. Most colleges test for vitamin D levels now. I remember doing some blood work, and then our athletes, even here at Stanford, just got some blood work done. Um, so yeah, vitamin D, magnesium, and then funny we're talking about ashwagandha. I don't typically take that, but I have noticed like some teas have it in it. So like maybe before bed, if you have some tea, sometimes a lot of it is they'll put ashwagandha in there and like a chamomile tea.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that makes sense. I think I take same pretty similar to you, and I do magnesium. Um, also do another thing I like at night is like higher dose taurine. It's just
Okay.
really good to chill out your nervous system. It's good to help your nervous system recover, especially if you're lifting heavy. I'll do like 10 milligrams of taurine. Um, or 10 grams of taurine, about 10 milligrams. Yeah, big difference. um, Another one I like at night a lot for just chilling out in your nervous system is inositol, which is it's also really good to kind of calm you down. You can actually, if you take a higher dose, you can actually like feel it. It's one of the few supplements you have like an actual feeling of, kind of feels like a relaxation in your body. I like that one a lot too.
Awesome. Yeah, and then I think a couple like honorable mention supplements. I mean, how you define supplements is kind of broad too and different depending on who you're talking to, but caffeine's awesome. I think caffeine before, I'm a big fan of just like coffee. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
really into like crazy pre-workouts or Jack 3D or whatever.
Not
um,
anymore.
yeah, caffeine good before a workout. And a lot of good studies on that too, how caffeine helps with performance. Salt, I think making sure that you're hydrated and properly hydrated. Uh, Proteins, obviously get whole foods, but if you're not getting protein goals or it's middle of the day, you're on the run. And then also trying to hit some fermented foods in a diet too, which I don't know, supplement, but I think it falls under honorable mentions of supplements as well. So
Yeah, agreed on all fronts. People ask me a lot what pre-workout I take. I say none because I like coffee too much. Like I
yeah,
want to my caffeine allotment for the day should definitely try and keep like below 400 milligrams. I want to drink coffee for all of that. I don't want to
yeah.
pre-workout.
Hey, one more thing. You just reminded me, beta alanine. You ever mess with beta alanine?
Great supplement, especially pre-workout.
Yeah.
I've taken beta alanine a lot. I mean, if you're going to like do a pre-workout, drink a cup of coffee, have some beta alanine and, go lift.
That's the one thing. Like, it's funny. Some supplements you take them and you're like, I don't feel anything. Beta alanine, you start feeling like itchy and tingly. It definitely is a weird feeling if you never had it. But, yeah, we had a lot of like our dietitians at Northwestern even talked about like creatine and beta alanine, being some pretty well studied. I think beta alanine is more for cardiovascular stuff. One more honorable mention too, beet juice. I think beet juice is awesome. You got your nitrates, which is huge to help with athletically derived performance stuff.
Yep.
So yeah,
Yeah, no, those are all really good. I mean, beta alanine, beet juice just help open up your blood vessels a little bit and, can definitely be a really good pre-workout. Something fun or I mean, maybe not fun, depending on how you look at it, that I've tried recently is intramuscular L-carnitine.
okay,
So I'm actually, it's like an injection. You feel like you're doing something illegal, even though you're not. It's completely WADA approved. But it's L-carnitine, comes in like a little vial. You use a syringe and you actually inject it intramuscularly right before working out. And I'd heard it was good from several people. Can be really helpful. It helps with kind of like set to set recovery. The carnitine is really important in kind of helping your body produce energy. And it actually makes a difference.
That's crazy.
Feels good.
Wow.
What doesn't feel good is right when you do it, it kind of feels like you got a Charlie horse.
Kind of feels like you're a drug addict right before.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Shooting up before your workout, but it's just L-carnitine, which you can take orally. It's just, it's like a multitude of like, I don't know what the exact sign is, but many, many more times
Yeah.
effective when it's directly into the muscle.
Yeah,
So that's an
absolutely.
interesting one.
I think that's crazy. I didn't know that. I think another thing that really needs to be talked about when we're talking about this is NSF and third party tested. There's a lot of good third party testing now, which is super important as we talk about like taking a supplement, especially if you're in a sport where there's prize money or you're competing for an NCAA level. Because when you get drug tested, it's very easy to fail a drug test based off of like not trying to do something wrong, but just there's something banned in this study. Um, and I think one thing that really helps like hit this point home, we're looking at some white papers and in 2013, in the landmark study performed by the International Olympic Committee in Germany, to define hormonal adulteration of popular muscle building, supposedly non-hormonal supplements, 18.8% of the muscle building supplements purchased from US companies were adulterated with banned substances. So that's like 1 in 5. Like that study is 1 in 5 had banned substances. So like, let's say you're about to go step out, win an NCAA title, and then you go back and you're like, you're taking something you're not supposed to, and you don't even know it. So I think it's really important. Make sure that you really talk to the right people, do your research, and make sure you're using reputable companies. I also think in terms of efficacy, it's important to make sure you're taking good brands, just because it's actually what says it's in the bottle is actually in the bottle. And a lot of supplement companies like use fillers and overdose like cheap vitamins that you don't need and don't put the good stuff in there that you're actually trying to purchase. Um, so I definitely think if you can afford it, it's important to look for maybe some of the better
Yeah.
brands. And just a quick funny story. I had a teammate one day, we got randomly drug tested in college. And about a day later, he gets called in by our team doc and he's freaking out. He's like, dude, we just took that drug test. What do you think? And he's the most straight laced like kid. I was like, there's no way. And he failed a drug test just from like poppy seed muffins. So there's a lot of things like those drug tests are sensitive. Um, so you got to make sure you know what you're doing and make sure that you're not doing the wrong things. But yeah, he was freaking out. It was literally a poppy seed muffin has the opioids in it or
Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
So yeah,
Yeah. I had a teammate, same thing, failed because he had like 2 pop seed bagels the morning
yes,
of a drug test. Wild.
crazy,
But
crazy.
I know I agree with your point. I think, not only is NSF really good for knowing that it's safe, but it also means it's just been lab tested, which means that what's in it is what they're saying that is in it. And to that point as well, if you are looking at buying supplements or you want to buy a pre-workout, I would say look for some don't buy supplements that have proprietary blends because you just don't know what's in it.
Yeah,
And I think that's the that's kind of the name of the game when you're taking supplements is knowing what you're taking. So
yeah,
don't go with look for NSF approved, look for no proprietary blends, and just make sure. Yeah, I try. Usually, you can stick to like a handful of supplement companies that are really reputable. Do some research. Like when I'm talking about like these vitamins or minerals, like taurine or KSM or 66 or N-acetylcarotene. Oh, like there's a handful of brands I'll buy from like Thorne, Designs for Health, Zymogen. These are just really reputable companies. They're all NSF approved. Just stick with those. Um, Even like now supplements that you can get on Amazon, it's a little cheaper. Still a really, reputable company and no proprietary blends, high quality. So just make sure you're sticking to that kind of stuff.
yeah, absolutely. And I think understanding too, like the supplements are always more effective if you use the right timeline of the supplement. And what I mean by that is like I used to buy fish oils in like super high, like you just buy them in bulk. Well, a lot of fish oils would go bad, and it's like probably not doing anything if you're just taking rancid fish oils, and then also just sucks. Like you're burping up, bad fishy taste. And I think protein powders, they'll go bad. Usually has a pretty good shelf life, but make sure you're storing these the right way too. And Amazon, be careful when you get something, make sure it's not like you get something, it's expired and you're just taking, something that's less than effective at that point. Um, and then I think what you do a great job with is like, you don't just take something randomly, you do blood work. So maybe touch on that a little
Yeah.
bit.
Well, I think, I mean, if you're, this is like how serious you want to be about it. And, blood work isn't free. You can get it pretty cheap if you have a doctor who's willing to work with you on it and prescribe you blood tests. Um, there's also there's third parties online you can go through now that where you can get fairly affordable blood work. But what I would say with blood work is one, it is great. It gives you a snapshot of kind of your overall health. You can see your metabolic health, your hormonal health, um, just some general health markers. But what is really important with blood work is one, have it reviewed by someone who knows what they're talking about, because it's definitely pretty confusing to understand at first. And two is do it regularly. Like one single blood draw is like a snapshot at that exact moment in time. So depending on a lot of things like stress, whether it's school, sport, just training stress, how hard you trained the day before your blood work, it can vary pretty significantly. If you start doing it like every, quarter, every 3 months, every 6 months, you start to see what your baselines are. Hi. And then you're able to make informed decisions about, your diet, your training, your supplementation based on what those baselines are. An example for me is like if I crush my legs, like a really hard workout or super hard wrestling workout the day before I get my blood work, my testosterone is like way lower. So if I
Yeah.
did that once, you might think I don't have overly high testosterone anyway, but like say normal for me is like 400 to 500. If I crush a leg workout or a really hard wrestling workout, my testosterone will be like low 200s. Whereas if I take an off day and I, like sleep really well, my testosterone would be like 550. But
Yep.
I wouldn't know that if I just did one, one blood test. So if you're going to do it regularly. It's probably
Yeah.
my biggest piece of advice, and review it with a professional.
When we're talking about supplements, it can get really overwhelming. So don't let great be the enemy of good here. Like figure out what moves the needle the most for you and what's sustainable for you and what fits within your goals and your budget range and your time range. And that's something that you can actually study and create a plan. Because I think just taking something because you see someone take it is probably not the right way to go down about this. Especially if you're in a sport and you want to be careful about losing eligibility based on, I don't know, 20% of, so let's say we just talked about 20% of supplements from US companies could have something that you don't even know is in there that will pop off on a drug test and get you banned.
Yep.
And then I think it's easy to get in the weeds with this, but like you're saying, like figure out what makes the most sense, take those things, and then I think that's a good way to go about supplementation. Don't go 30 at a time. Try one or two. See how you feel with those. And then if you want to add more and get blood tests and be like, oh, this will help me, do it. If you get
Great
everything from
advice.
food, you don't need to, don't do it.
Yeah. Great advice. As a fun aside, how often did you get drug tested in college?
A lot, dude. We had one year, I swear I got drug tested 5 times because we'd have NCAA, we'd have our institutional, so we'd have Northwestern drug testing, we'd have Big Ten, and then NCAA drug testing. And then like at random tournaments, I got drug tested once or twice. And then I was in the USADA pool for freestyle
Yeah.
stuff, for national team stuff. So then that was like a different pool too. Um, so yeah, I guess some buddies that went to other schools and they're like, oh, we never got drug tested. I feel like our team was getting drug tested all the time.
Yeah. I got drug tested left and right. It was like 4 or 5 times a year. So Mike, I'm wondering, are they just looking at guys and being like,
It's
Ryan,
random.
next, random testing? So I got tested nonstop by my
Dude, what?
school, by the conference, by the NCAA. I was, I mean, maybe too much information, but I also like hate peeing for drug
Yeah.
tests. So I
I'm the
was like
same
always
way.
the last guy in there. I was like chugging water the
That's funny.
worst.
Dude,
Yeah.
I just lost at nationals my freshman year, and they're like, "All right, it's go time to drug test." I'm like, "This is the worst freaking time, man!" Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's tough. You just gotta do
My
it.
trainer, my trainer used to hate it. Cause I'm a heavyweight. It's ending at like 9:30 at night. And like, all right, your drug test. I'm like, what the heck? All right. Like the conference, I'm late. I'm in the bathroom for like 2 hours with the trainer, the drug testing guy. No, yeah.
Dude,
Don't miss.
I almost made our whole team miss a flight. We were at Big Tens, and I got randomly drug tested, or I think all the winners had to get drug tested, and so I couldn't pee. Same thing. It was like an hour and a half. Finally, I pee. Everyone's out of the gym. My whole team's waiting for me. They're messing around. We sprint to the bus, sprint through the airport, barely made the flight. And I was like, I'm so sorry, guys. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
what to tell you.
Yeah. I was always that guy too. The worst.
That's funny.
The worst.
Um, I,
You want to get into creatine?
I think we got a lot of questions on it. So yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So let's start just with what creatine is. Because I think this is really important and a lot of people don't get it. A lot of people think creatine's like this mythical supplement. People are like, are you natural? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, but do you take creatine? I'm like, yeah. They're like, then you're not natural. I'm like, oh, okay, it is not a steroid. Big capital
Right.
letters. It is a naturally occurring combination of three different amino acids, which is glycine, arginine, and methionine. And one thing I really want to emphasize is you can actually get a lot of creatine, probably even enough creatine if you eat the right kind of diet. I like citing this, especially when people tell me like creatine performance enhancing. I'm like, well, do you eat salmon? Do you eat red meat? They're like, yeah. Like, well, they're getting a lot of creatine because
Right.
like one 4-ounce fillet of salmon will have 2.5 grams of creatine or thereabout.
Wow.
Yeah. So like, you and I probably sit down when we have a piece of salmon, it's 8 ounces. You're getting 5 grams of creatine. That's like the quote unquote daily dose. Red meat, it's about 2.5 grams per 8 ounces. But I'll eat 24, 32 ounces of red meat in a day on most days. So like I'm getting,
32-ounce T-bone. You're getting a lot of
yeah,
creatine.
a lot of creatine. Well, and it is it's lean red meat. Well, trust with that, but it's a lot of creatine in red meat. So that's kind of point number one is, so if you're eating a diet that has really all meat has creatine, but especially red meat and salmon. But if you're eating a diet that's rich in those foods, you're probably getting more than enough creatine just through your diet. I don't supplement with creatine that often just because I know I'm getting so much through the red meat that I'm eating. So that's kind of point number one. And then that's kind of the what is creatine. And then why creatine is good for you. It's really several different things, but first and foremost and this is kind of how it helps with on the athletic performance side of things, is it helps your body create ATP. When you creatine, it binds to a phosphate molecule to create creatine phosphate. And then when you're using ATP for energy, which is kind of like what all of us use for cellular energy, when you use ATP for energy, it becomes ADP. And in order to convert that ADP back to ATP, you need creatine. Creatine helps your body convert that back to a useful energy source. So without getting like too nerdy or too into the weeds, basically creatine helps you create more ATP, helps you train harder for longer. Also, creatine phosphate, when you eat it, is an energy source itself, especially for anaerobic activity. So like more explosive movements, weightlifting, wrestling. Creatine phosphate itself is actually an energy source. So you can, through supplementing with creatine, basically you have more energy for strength-based explosive movements, anything that's anaerobic. So that's kind of the second benefit. The third is it does help you have more hydrated muscles, which we can get into because that's kind of one of the great myths about creatine is that it makes you retain all this water and dehydrates you and all this stuff. But really, none of that is necessarily true. But what it does do is it helps your muscles stay a little more hydrated, which is really just means a healthy muscle cell, which means you're going to have better effects from muscle protein synthesis, et cetera, better nutrient uptake. Um, and then uh, kind of finally is to wrap all this up is creatine is the most studied supplement in all of supplements. It is now, I think it was because of one really bad study. It's been studied so extensively and it is really a safe, healthy supplement. It needs to be used correctly, and we can get into kind of guidelines for that. But it's overall, it's not this crazy thing that's going to make you retain a bunch of water. It's also not going to like take you from. I'm sure you've all seen the memes like before creatine, after creatine, like as a joke. It's not going to really like it helps a little bit. It's really good for you. It's well studied, but it's not like this magic pill either. It's just something to take if you're looking to optimize.
Um, if you're in a sport like wrestling where you're cutting weight, we've had dietitians even recommend like, don't take your creatine out like you do 3 grams a week or 3 grams a day instead of 5 grams a day. And then a couple of days before cutting weight, maybe take some of it out because you're less hydrated. You don't want to retain as much water or whatever. But I think there's a lot of studies now that are talking. So all that to say, one, like look at your situation specifically. And then two, there's a lot of studies too talking about, the benefits for the brain too. Like
Yep.
this isn't just for like weightlifting. There's a lot of like benefits outside of just muscle, improving muscle and energy for performance. And I even saw a study on concussions and how like having more creatine is actually helps you prevent concussions and stuff like that. So I think creatine is overwhelmingly studied. Obviously, try to get a good creatine, but creatine's fairly cheap. I think it's a great supplement. And then, like you said, I think we get a lot of it from our diet already. So if you're like, no, creatine's bad for you, it's like you're already taking creatine. It's just how much creatine do you want to take? You know?
Exactly. Um, one of my favorite myths, I just want to debunk is people are like, "Oh, I don't like taking creatine because it makes me look fluffy." That is inherently not how it works. Because look at when you look fluffy from bloating, it's because of subcutaneous water retention, right? Like in between your muscle and your skin would make you look bloated. Like salt can do that. But when you take creatine makes you retain water in your muscle. So if anything, you're going to look less bloated and like more full. Your muscles will be more visible if you're taking creatine. So let's just get, you're not taking creatine because you don't want to look fluffy. Like that's just not how it works. So I want to get that one off the table. And then two, you hit on it. You probably like, do you want to be like taking a ton of creatine when you're trying to cut weight? Like the last couple days of water weight? No. But at the same time, from a water retention effect, it actually retains less water than like carbohydrates and salt. So it's just like it's something to be aware of. It's not something, it's not this, thing that's gonna make this huge difference. And you're not gonna go up 10 pounds because you're taking creatine. It's just not how it works functionally.
Think people are definitely, I don't know. It's so funny because it's so studied, but there's a lot of misconceptions about creatine too. And it's not like this crazy end all be all. It's the best supplement ever, but it's something that's proven to work. It helps. But again, if you don't want to take it, you don't have to take it. You're already getting
Yeah.
creatine from your diet, hopefully, as long as you eat some meat. And I think that the way it was explained to me, I don't know how scientific this kind of bro sciencey, but like, if I was going to do 10 reps on something, but I can only get 8, like creatine helps you get like maybe one more rep. It's
Yeah,
like
it's
just
a
a
little bit.
little bit of extra power,
Yep. I think
so
that's exactly right.
uh,
It's just good for you. Like it's just gonna help you feel a little bit better overall. It's just gonna help you be a little bit stronger. It's good for your brain. And you can really point the bad rap of creatine back to one study. I don't remember. You can look it up. It was from a while ago. Basically, they had a bunch of like high school football players going through 2 a days. It's like Texas heat. They were only giving them like 32 ounces of water over like an 8-hour period and having them like load creatine. But all the negative effects, like the stuff that came out about the kidney effects, and was really due to just like terrible dehydration that had nothing to do with the creatine. So like if you look at like the perceived negative effects of creatine, they're really just the effects of dehydration from like one just terrible study. It's since been very debunked, and I think the stigma is starting to go away, but um, it's definitely still something I get a lot of questions about, and it's overwhelmingly safe, but definitely consult your doctor, do it safely, do it smart. Um, and a good place to start if you are looking to take creatine is take 3 to 5 grams a day, supplemental. You said you take it in the morning, perfectly fine. You could take it before you work out, after you work out, in the morning. Doesn't really matter. Look at it more like you're taking a multivitamin. Just get your 3 to 5 grams in a day, whatever works for you.
Absolutely. Love it.
Awesome. Well, fun discussing supplements with you today, Ryan. You have anything else? Any other wisdom you want to impart on us?
No, that's it. I appreciate it, Max. We'll see you guys next time with the next one.
All right, later.